Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome to our Tuesday night live stream for Week 14 of the 2025 fantasy football season. I just saw Soldier say, a kicker in the thumbnail, GOAT is cooking. I mean, listen, there's only so many players that I can reuse on a thumbnail. Like, I think the last 3 Tuesdays, I have had Bretton Strange on the Tuesday thumbnail. And I've continued to say, please pick up Bretton Strange. Please pick up Bretton Strange. It's probably been over a month that I've been saying this, even prior to him coming back from IR. But nonetheless, we're gonna shake it up a little bit. But as you guys know, on a Tuesday live stream, we talk all things waiver wire in order to set up our lineups for success. Tonight, of course, a very important waivers will be running, and I'm sure there are many of vital players on the waiver wire in order to potentially pick up and start this week, as there are 4 teams on bye: the Giants, the Patriots, followed by, don't know why it's eclipsing my brain, the 49ers and Carolina Panthers also on bye. So again, in need of potential players, we'll look towards the waiver wire. I'm sure everybody's I'm sure everybody's trade deadline's already passed. If you do play in a league that doesn't have a trade deadline already passed, I'm sure that I can certainly try to help you in terms of answering questions there. But either way, hope you guys are doing well on this wonderful Tuesday for Week 14. Earlier today, I did drop my top 36 running back rankings video for the given week. So if you guys have any questions regarding which running backs to start, that'll be the preliminary for a half PPR, meeting everyone in the middle, whether it is a standard league that you play in or a full PPR league. But as you guys know, if you guys want my all-encompassing rankings every Sunday, you can find it via Betr. But if you want my rankings every Thursday and Sunday, you can always check out the Patreon. Thank you. Okay, before I get into answering questions, as you know, make sure you include your scoring format within the question. The more you provide in terms of context, the easier it'll be for myself to answer said question. Shall we? Okay, let's get into it. The first question today was sent in via Super Chat in order to claim priority. So I wanted to go ahead and get to that question to begin with. It starts with Death to Ming, 6868, who says the following. Says, Drake May is on a bye. I need a quarterback. Currently have Darnold starting. Mariota, Taylor, as in Tyrod, Tyler Shuck, and McCarthy are on the wire. Should I stick with Darnold? Thanks, Drew. So I think there's a couple of Okay, so here's my initial thought process. I think Darnold technically is considered a safe option in the matchup against Atlanta. I will say Darnold, more often than not, as of late, has been a single-digit fantasy point contributor in a 4-point per passing touchdown format. So as it currently stands, with less rushing upside and the more likely than not circumstance to where Kirk Cousins gets battered, defensive touchdowns occur, and of course they run out the clock for majority of the second half, I would much rather genuinely play Mariota or Tyrod Taylor in the given week, assuming Mariota plays and Jaden Daniels is out, or if Tyrod Taylor is available, I'd probably pivot in that direction, especially with Darnold dealing with an ankle injury. Like, again, I think there is a safety with Darnold because, again, we have seen him have the highs of highs, but he's also had low lows as of late. So personally, if it's me, I'd like to prioritize Mariota, assuming Jaden Daniels is out. We won't have that information until probably Friday. And then otherwise, I'd rather have Tyrod Taylor. If my fantasy season's on the line this week, taking on that Miami defense, I think is a relatively advantageous position for him. Thank you. Abram sends in a question. Thank you very much, Abram. Hope you're doing well. Says, who should I drop, if any, to pick up Mike Evans or Chris Godwin? My team is Mahomes, May, Henry, Kyron Williams, Dowdle, Javonte, Jacobs, Chase, Amon-Ra, McConkey, Diggs, Kittle, and Strange. Well, okay, so here's the reality of the situation. You should be able to pick up Evans and just throw him into your IR position. If that is not a possibility, then I would probably venture to say you don't need to pick up either of these two, because you need to keep Strange on roster this week in order to fill in for Kittle's bye week. And then you would never really ever start Godwin or Evans over Chase and a healthy Amon-Ra St. Brown. So really in this circumstance, I don't see myself dropping McConkey or Diggs in order to accomplish a potential pickup here. And I'm not really going to utilize the dropping of Drake May in order to accomplish that either. So as of right now, I don't think it's relatively worth it to drop anything that you currently have on roster to make this move. Now, for other leagues and in other circumstances, I think it's very much so worth picking up Evans and throwing him on your IR spot. So by the time we get to week 16, maybe he puts together a decent performance. Then he can contribute for us in week 17, the fantasy football playoffs. But for those of you who play in an 18-week league, perhaps Evans will be a little bit more valuable in your circumstance in that certain week. But as of right now, with the current situation that you have, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think there's a necessity to have to go after either of the two. Thank you. Dragon Slayer sends in a question. Thank you, Dragon Slayer. Says, pick up Jacoby Myers or AD Mitchell. I'd much rather have Jacoby Myers. Look, I think the entire season, weeks 1 through 13 thus far, the objective for the Jacksonville Jaguars passing game is anybody but Brian Thomas Jr. That's been the objective. They've written that on the whiteboards, on the walls. They've put it in every single font you could possibly imagine in the organization. Get the ball to everyone except for Brian Thomas Jr. They've tried to do that to the best of their ability. They've accomplished that. I'm completely joking, by the way, but in reality, no. Seriously, Jakobi Meyers is the preferred, especially the way that he has looked as of late. The last 2 weeks scoring touchdowns, could have been 3 of the last 4 weeks as a Jacksonville Jaguar with a touchdown. If the first week in which he played for the Jaguars, that touchdown wasn't called back for the illegal procedure. Ultimately, I think he's not only the more valuable of the two, but there is a potential expectation in which we do have the return of Garrett Wilson for the Jets that would diminish A.D. Mitchell's value in the long term. So Jakobi Meyers is the more valuable of the two in this circumstance. Thank you. All right, we had a question from Mar for life. So thank you very much, Mar. Appreciate it. Says in a full PPR, 6 point per touchdown, playing for bye week. Okay, so we're looking for the first round fantasy bye for the playoffs. We have Stafford, Drake London, A.J. Brown, Khalil Shakir. Flex is Myers, Henry, Swift at running back, Strange at tight end. Rams are the defense. Slayton, Purdy, Dowdle, Waller, Kincaid, and the Texans. Waivers, Evans, drop who? If you were theoretically going to go after picking up Mike Evans, I probably think you don't need to have 3 tight ends on roster, to which at this point, it's probably a move to where you just drop Waller outright. Again, the overall target opportunity at which Waller is exposed to over the given weeks that we've seen him perform is not a substantial enough margin for me to feel confident starting him in any given week, especially in a full PPR format when other players like a Dalton Schultz are out here catching the ball 8 times a week almost. So in terms of the overall exposure to opportunity and the format itself, I think Waller technically amongst the availables you have here is the least desirable option for the future. So that's where I would go. I drop Waller in order to pick up Evans and slot him there for the defense as we get closer. As for this week, in terms of the lineup, it's looking pretty solid here. I may consider playing Kincaid over Strange considering the Cincinnati Bengals matchup, but that's more of a to-be-determined aspect considering he hasn't played in the last 2 weeks and we want to see what his practice participation looks like before we roll him out there in this circumstance. Thank you. Christopher Franco sends in a question. Christopher, thank you. Says, drop one, Waller, Juwan Johnson, or Mark Andrews rest of season. If I'm dropping one of these available options, technically I think it's Waller. Again, I think Juwan Johnson's overall opportunity share as of late, regardless of scoring format, has been far too potent for me to avoid him. So then it just becomes a matter of which of these two very much so touchdown-dependent tight ends is going to be exposed to more opportunity effectively. And not only does Waller have an incredible fantasy playoff matchup schedule for the next, 3 weeks here, weeks 15, 16, and 17, Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson have one of the easiest as they'll have an opportunity to rematch against Cincinnati Bengals. And then subsequently after that, I think they take on New England. And then they had another, what is their week 17 matchup? I think they take on Pittsburgh. Those are 3 great games. Or maybe it's not Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is week 18 for them. Either way, I know they've got a really advantageous position there. Personally, I'd probably go with Juwan Johnson and Mark Andrews rest of the season. Thank you. Mike Alvarez sends in a question. Mike, thank you. Says, I sent 2-part question. Standard league, by the way. Okay, thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. All right, Mike says, would you drop Broncos defense for Blake Corum? I have Kyron Williams owner who has clinched the playoffs. I'm a Kyron Williams owner. Okay, cool. I have Houston's defense for week 16. Okay, let me look at the schedule for NFL week 16. Okay, so I'm going to look at Houston's matchup. I'm just curious what it looks like in week 16. So they take on Las Vegas, which is beautiful. So if you've already clinched the bye week, you've already clinched the playoffs. So it's not really you're going to get a week 16 or week 15 bye. Okay, so you have and would you drop Kenneth Walker or Cortland Sutton for Chuba Hubbard his week 16? Let me see what Chuba's matchup looks like in that overall week. So in the case of this, so taking on Tampa week 16, I think that's quite advantageous actually. And then your follow-up part 2 says Chuba has a better week 16 than Walker. I mean, Chuba, if he gets the opportunity share he was just exposed to for weeks ahead, he's going to be more valuable effectively than Kenneth Walker, regardless of matchup, because it doesn't really matter what the matchup is for Walker. Ultimately, the lack of touchdowns has been his kryptonite this season. I have Adams, Chase, and Waddle. I don't really need Sutton. Yeah, look, as of right now, my only concern on dropping a player of the caliber of Kenneth Walker or Sutton is somebody picking them up and using them against you. So in this case, first and foremost, would I drop the Broncos defense in order to pick up Blake Corum? I think it's probably in your best interest to do so because you always want the insurance policy kind of baked in. And even though, yes, they do have a really advantageous matchup this week. So if in the event you were like, okay, well, I need to win this week to get a first round bye, then you would play them against the Raiders. Otherwise, I think they are droppable because I don't really want to play them in the playoffs within that schedule. So as of right now, I'd be willing to make that swap. And then subsequently after, in order to pick up Chuba Hubbard, considering you have Adams, Chase, and Waddle, yeah, I'm probably on the same boat as you, to which I would rather drop Sutton than drop Kenneth Walker in this circumstance. Because if anything ever happens to Charbonnet, if any sort of wacky injury was to take place, the value which Kenneth Walker would elevate to would be like 20 points a week minimum. So I don't want to give up on that potential of opportunity. Thank you. All right, continuing on. Question from Mr. Hockeyman. Says, hi, Andrew. Questions in the chat. Thanks for the help. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Says, drop Brandon Aubrey for Jason Myers for the rest of the season. I mean, Jason Myers has been the number one kicker in fantasy for what? The entirety of this season. I mean, as of late, he has been double-digit fantasy points at such a level to where no one's really going to catch him within the category either. Jason Myers' fantasy points in the last 4 games looks like 15, 14, 13, and 19. As of late, he's been on an absolute tear considering how much this offense takes early leads and then is able to just kick away the game in the second half, to which, again, I think they'll continue to do that in their upcoming matchups against Atlanta, Indianapolis, etc. So ultimately, I'm all in on it. Yeah, let's make that swap. Also, Strange or Juwan Johnson. Actually, I'm actually curious. What does Aubrey's output look like comparatively? Yeah, Aubrey's not in a terrible position. He's just, doesn't have as many opportunities to kick field goals. Also, Strange or Juwan Johnson, rest of season, half PPR, thanks. As of those two, objectively speaking, Juwan Johnson has less competition. So it then becomes a matter of like, when I look at the schedules of Tampa Bay, Carolina, the New York Jets, Tennessee up ahead for Juwan Johnson, I'm thinking to myself, how advantageous is that for the quarterback position, which I think it is quite advantageous. But what I will say is that the schedule objectively is in the favor of Brenton Strange. So it's just purely a matter of, would you rather go after schedule or would you rather go after opportunity share with a little bit of a lesser schedule? Personally, I'm all about potential opportunity because that leads to the greatest volume for potential success. I'd lean towards Juwan Johnson in this case. But if I could, I'd try to keep both because, anything can change in one singular week for fantasy, as we all know. Thank you. All right, Akuma187 sends out a question. Says, sup, Drew? 10-team PPR, must win to make the playoffs. I need a quarterback from the waivers. We have Jacoby Brissett, Tyrod Taylor, Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence. Okay, first and foremost, I'm playing Jacoby Brissett. 10 times out of 10, he has to be in my lineup. I'm surprised he's not already picked up in your league. He has been an unstoppable force and should be rostered and starting this week. In the event in which you're not able to get him, I would pick up Trevor Lawrence and start him. Now, to your next question, also start Woody Marks or Chris Rodriguez. As of earlier today, I believe, and I can go ahead and throw it up on screen, in terms of the rankings that I posted in regards to my top 36 running backs for this week, I do have Chris Rodriguez as my number 27 and Woody Marks as my number 29, 2 spots next to him. So even in a full PPR, the lack of receiving utilization for Woody Marks, obviously he's playing a heavy toll on his overall value, to which Chris Rodriguez, against the defense that's allowed over 100 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown in each of the last 4 games, leads me to believe that I'd rather lean towards Chris Rodriguez in this circumstance. Thank you. Daniel Barnes sends in a question, says, is it worth wavering, using waiver priority on Terry McLaurin? Absolutely. Yeah, it is. Especially with Jaden Daniels expected to return. Not only it doesn't even have to be this week in which Jaden returns. As long as it's week 15, for weeks 15 through 17, Terry McLaurin would easily be a top 24 fantasy prospect within those overall weeks. So yeah, I think the value in itself there is much so to the point to where it's worth it. Rip it. If it's the number one waiver priority, you have it. Let's get it going, Daniel. Thank you. I do see an incredibly generous super chat there. I'll get to it in just a moment. Thank you very much, Derek. We have Taylor, who says, Lamar or Burrow flex. Okay, first and foremost, Lamar or Burrow. I'm going to play Burrow this week against Buffalo. As for Pierce, BTJ, or Mitchell, of those available options, I'm going to lean towards playing Alec Pierce there against Jacksonville. Thank you. Lou sends in a question, says, drop Lawrence, Burrow, or Mayfield. If I'm going to drop one of these quarterbacks, I'm probably more inclined to drop Lawrence. I'd rather keep Burrow and Mayfield going forward. Thank you. Then Felix Rodriguez says, start Love or Jones. Thoughts on Terry? Terry should be a fantastic play going forward. Obviously, Mariota has favored him greatly. If you guys look at the recent success of Terry when Mariota has been active, regardless of which quarterback is playing, he's going to find success going forward. I'm just surprised that he was able to stay healthy in this game because he's missed the entirety of this year. But as for the two, Daniel Jones or Jordan Love this week, I'd probably lean towards playing Daniel Jones in this circumstance. Jordan Love probably goes back to being a conservative rushing offense once again this week, unfortunately. All right, Derek Kohler sends in a question. Thank you very much for the incredibly generous super chat. If it was a mistake and you sent in too much, brother, then contact YouTube, brother. But as of right now, it's greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. Okay, sends in a question. Says Mark Andrews, Harold Fannin, Brenton Strange. Who do I start? And who do I drop? I mean, I'm dropping Harold Fannin, and I'm probably starting Brenton Strange. Brenton Strange is coming off of back-to-back weeks as a top 5 fantasy prospect at the tight end position, and effectively is more valuable than the alternatives because they both are incredibly dependent on touchdowns, while Brenton Strange can still find value as a baseline receiver off of yardage and receptions alone. And with Parker Washington's most recent injury, I think that it does promote a little bit more value for Brenton Strange. We have to remember, prior to Brenton Strange going to the injured reserve earlier this season, I've mentioned this on multiple occasions, but in the first 5 weeks of the season, Brenton Strange had the most receptions and receiving yards amongst all Jaguars prior to his injury. So now he's getting back to being the number one priority option there, and we'll continue to explore that as we go forward. So Fannin's the drop. I'm keeping Mark Andrews because I really like the schedule and the quarterback there, and I think Brenton Strange, again, has the most value as for this week as a starting option. As for your next question, you said Brian Thomas Jr., we have Alec Pierce, we have Godwin, we have Justin Jefferson. I have to start 3 of them. If I'm starting 3 of these options, under the assumption that at least we get J.J. McCarthy active this week, I'm probably rolling with these 3. Alec Pierce, Godwin, and Justin Jefferson. Brian Thomas Jr. is a little bit of a sketchy play in my opinion. I think Justin Jefferson is just as sketchy, but at least he gets himself a little bit of a greater opportunity share effectively. Brian Thomas would need a lot of potential, I don't know, everything would have to break in the right direction for him to get some sort of extra, incentive value there, in comparison to which I would rather play Alec Pierce for sure. Justin Jefferson, I have to always play. I mean, after I drafted him, I pretty much signed a binding contract that he would be my outright starter every week. And then Godwin, as of late, getting more and more share in that offense that I think is quite promising, to be honest. And then moving on to the final question, says my running backs are Kenneth Walker, Woody Marks, Jordan Mason, start 2. Jordan Mason, I think, would only ever be a start in this circumstance in the event in which Aaron Jones' shoulder injury, that he's dealing with an AC shoulder sprain. If in the event in which that injury is a little bit more, I would say, serious than it has originally been conveyed to the public, if that does force him to miss, then sure, I'd play Jordan Mason because I think it's an incredible matchup against Washington. Otherwise, I think Kenneth Walker and Woody Marks are your 1-2 combo. In the event in which, again, Aaron Jones is inactive, you'd play Jordan Mason alongside of Kenneth Walker in the given week. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Derek. Very generous of you. G. Medina sends in a question. Says, hello, Andrew. Questions in the chat. Thank you. All right. As that loads, maybe my internet just went out. I don't think so, though. I think we should be fine. As that continues to load, I appreciate y'all coming through today. Of course, this is a wonderful Tuesday as we're talking all things waiver wire pickups. Again, welcome for those of you who are in the chat. Hopefully I can try to get to your guys' questions in just a moment. Again, like I talked about, as long as you include your scoring format and the more context you provide within your question, the easier it'll be for myself and others in the live chat to help answer said questions. I appreciate y'all. Thank you. G. Medina says, in a half PPR, bench 1 this week between Jacobs, Kyron, Javonte, and Judkins. I think it depends. As of right now, I think Jacobs and Kyron are like auto starts. The only reason I would ever not start Kyron is if he's injured and he's not playing. Otherwise, then it becomes a matter of like Javonte versus Judkins. That in itself has multiple factors. First and foremost, what is the status of Dylan Sampson once we get to Sunday? And then additionally on top of that, what is the weather in Cleveland going to look like? Because the weather in Cleveland, if it's a heavy snow game where running the ball is all that's going to happen, is going to be the pretty much game script, I may feel confident starting Judkins over Javonte in that circumstance. Otherwise, these are my top 3 prospects as it currently stands in a half PPR as of today's rankings from earlier in regards to my top 36 running backs. Thank you. As for your next question, also Brissett, Caleb, or Burrow. I'm playing Burrow every week henceforth. If you have Burrow on roster, unless you've got an substantially better potential option in comparison. I think he should start every week. The amount of drop touchdowns that occurred last week, he should have had at least 2 more receiving touchdowns, if not 3 more within his scoreline. But instead, it led to a million field goals for the thumbnail of today's live stream, Evan McPherson. So again, yeah, thumbs up, McPherson. Congratulations, you got field goals. Gesicki dropped a touchdown. Tinsley dropped a touchdown. Everybody who wanted to drop made a drop. So I think Burrow going forward will be a better option. Not worried about him playing in Buffalo, as earlier in his career he's done so, and he's even beaten them in the playoffs in Buffalo. They can't stop the run. Burrow's on fire. Expect for the Cincinnati Bengals to be up in action in that given game. Thank you. Moving on to Christopher as a follow-up. Says, I have Lamar, drop dart for Brissett or Trevor Lawrence. In the event in which you were to, do I want to drop dart? I don't really want to drop dart, and I can't drop Lamar out of the principle of just having Lamar on roster. So if you were theoretically going to not play Lamar, which I probably wouldn't suggest, the next to best available between Brissett and Trevor Lawrence is technically Brissett in this circumstance. Thank you. Alejo sends in a question. Alejo, thank you. Says, full PPR, Hurts or Burrow? Again, I don't know if, I was saying, like, unless you have a substantially better option, unless you've got Josh Allen, I feel like Joe Burrow is probably just going to continue to be an auto start going forward, to which even in this case, I feel pretty, again, there's not as much rushing potential for upside, which obviously in fantasy football in a 4-point per passing touchdown league, it will always favor the likes of someone like Jalen Hurts. But ultimately, I genuinely would play Burrow in this case. I need one wide receiver and one flex between Rashee Rice, London if healthy, Pittman, Bucky, Hampton if healthy, McLaughlin or Dicker. Between those two kickers, as of right now, I'm going to lean towards Dicker, the kicker. I think overall this season he's just been a better option, and he's playing indoors this upcoming Sunday against Philly. I think that'll lead to even more potential field goals there, assuming Herbert's active, which he should be. In the event in which Herbert doesn't play, then you just pivot to playing McLaughlin. As for your potential starts, one wide receiver, one flex, Rashee Rice has to play. In a full PPR, he has been one of the best. I think he's been the number one wide receiver since he's returned to action. So that's an automatic. And then alongside of him, I'm playing Bucky Irving. That's the way in which I would go about this. I may consider Drake London, but again, I don't know if I'm all in on that unless I get some indications on the full participation of practice taking place prior to this upcoming Sunday. So Rice and Bucky would be my primary suggestion there alongside of Burrow. Thank you, Alejo. Ja476 says, in a half PPR, my wide receivers are Ladd, Sutton, Diggs, McMillan. Is Diggs droppable? I would not say so. Again, I understand that Diggs is coming off of some underwhelming performances, but I don't understand where, this is not even the first time that I've heard that today. I understand his last 2 weeks consist of 4 and 5.6 fantasy points in a full PPR, but are we all going to forget that he put up 19.5, 15.6, 12.8, 10.4, 13.9, 24.6, 16.10 in the last 8 weeks? Like, are we going to forget those performances? Like, unless he's injured or something and I'm not aware of it, there's no reason in which I'm dropping him, especially when he has Buffalo next week. If you guys remember earlier in the year against Buffalo, had a revenge game in which he went for 10 receptions, over 100 receiving yards, and absolutely torched that secondary. So I'm all in on Diggs. I don't think I need to drop him for any of the availables you have mentioned here at all. Now, if you were to tell me, Andrew, I have Ladd, Sutton, Diggs, McMillan, I have to start 3 wide receivers, otherwise I lose this week, then that's a completely different conversation, to which at that point, perhaps we're dropping Diggs or McMillan in order to go get Jacoby Myers in this circumstance. That's the only time I'd ever consider it. And in that case, if I look at McMillan's upcoming schedule, let me see which wide receiver I'd rather have. In the case of this situation, I would probably rather have... I'd rather have Diggs. So if that's the case, McMillan gets the axe for Myers and keep it moving. Thank you. All right, Gerardo sends in a question. Gerardo, thank you. Says Stafford or Jones? Yeah, I'd much rather have Matthew Stafford. I know this most recent week was incredibly underwhelming, but more often than not, he has been an absolute league winner rather than the guy that showed up on Sunday. Also, I need a flex between Olave, Higgins, and Neal from the Saints. Yeah, as of right now, of these available, I think Olave has to start every week. I think that's just a blind play without a doubt. Now, you do have Higgins, and I'm wondering if you meant T. Higgins or Jaden Higgins. Now that we have 2 Higgins in the league that are prominent players, that's my curiosity. to which I think that does present the potential question as to who it is. In the event in which we're talking about T. Higgins, that's a very close ranking to where probably by tomorrow I'll have a better picture of it. As of right now, again, he still hasn't cleared concussion protocol, and Olave obviously has a little bit of the back issue, so we'll keep those both monitored going forward, and by tomorrow I'll give you an indication as to which way I'm going based on my video. But as of this moment, if T. Higgins is active and healthy, I probably roll him because I think Burrow is going to light the league on fire. Troll in 83s sends it a question. Says, in a half PPR, Fannin or Parkinson? Colby Parkinson is okay. Again, he's got to score a touchdown. He has to. And obviously in this most recent game, wasn't able to do so. Now, if there isn't any better options than Colby Parkinson, it's still not a terrible play coming off the week in which he just had. But in a full PPR, is he a better play against Arizona? Technically, yes. I would probably take... I don't know. Look, Fannin has gotten himself a pretty good opportunity share as of late. So, technically, as the number one receiver of that offense, I want to lean in the direction of Fannin, and I probably will. But that matchup against Arizona, man, it's pretty sweet. I will tell you. It's pretty damn sweet. But for now, let's just go with Fannin. Just because there's a little bit safer of a floor in my mind. Real Young sends out a question. Says, RJ Harvey or Jalen Warren rest of season? Well, I think there's a couple of aspects within that question that need to be addressed. First and foremost, what's the status of J.K. Dobbins? And does he have an opportunity of returning later on this year? Because I think if, in fact, J.K. Dobbins is not going to return from now until week 17, I'd much rather have R.J. Harvey. I'd rather have the RB that is getting himself more receiving utilization and then effectively on top of that, associated with the better offense that's going to get him the goal line workload that is going to score more touchdowns. So for right now, under the assumption, which I do believe, Dobbins probably doesn't return. If he does, it's for the NFL playoffs. I'd rather have Harvey. Thank you. Moving on to Alex W. 2202, who says, full PPR, must-win week. We've got Daniel Jones, Brock Purdy, or Jacoby Brissett. Between those three quarterbacks, I'm leaning towards Brissett as of right now. And then we have Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, Knight, Vidal, Justin Jefferson, Shakir Pearsall, Michael Wilson, Jaden Higgins, McBride, and Theo Johnson. Drop one for Jacoby Myers. Theo Johnson gets dropped. It's not even a question. McBride's always going to be your starter every week, henceforth, rest of the season. If you had to drop technically a wide receiver in order to accomplish this, then at that point, Pearsall gets the axe, considering he's going on bye, and I don't trust him to play in week 15 for my fantasy roster in a win or go home situation. So in the event in which, again, you have to roster two tight ends or you have to drop a wide receiver in order to pick up Jacoby and Theo can't be the sacrificial lamb here, Pearsall would be the next option there in order to pick up Jacoby Myers. Thank you. Alejo says, follow-up, McPherson's on the waivers. Who's better rest season, McLaughlin, Dicker, or McPherson? As of right now, I'm leaning towards the potential of McPherson, but I will say, again, he does play outdoors, which does make it a little bit more of a difficult potential in terms of the upcoming matchups. They'll have to take on Buffalo in Buffalo this week. Then they have home against Baltimore, which is outdoors. Then they have Miami, which again, the weather shouldn't be a problem in December. Then they have Arizona, which is indoors. At that point, again, I look at the upcoming schedule. I look at the volume of field goals they are attempting as of late, and I assume it's only going to continue to either stay consistent or increase, considering their offense has taken a step forward and their defense will subsequently take a step forward as well because of the aura of Joe Burrow. It's a legitimate thing. When you have your franchise quarterback under center, the defense is going to play better. They're going to play harder. They're going to put themselves into positions to succeed because they have the hope that they can win these games. So as of now, McPherson's my suggestion. Otherwise, just stick with Dicker going forward. Let's see here. 86. Or 860 or 876, excuse me. Tat says, have to pick up one flex. Have to pick up and flex one. Vele, Wix, or Tesla. In order, thanks. Yeah, as of right now, number one will be Tesla. Number two would be Vele. Number three would be Wix. Again, Tesla will be the number one under the assumption that Amon-Ra St. Brown is not active and available for tomorrow. Earlier today, there's been a lot of injury reports in regards to the overall status of players on the Detroit Lions that have been revealed. I'm going to go ahead and just convey them really quickly here. Let's go ahead and pop that up real here. Okay, so as of today, I mean, man, they've got so many damn injuries. They're going to be in a negative script for the entirety of this game, I'm going to assume. And if they're not, I'd be greatly surprised. Let me see if Amon-Ra had an official report because they haven't updated their official site, but I know that there was a lot of reports that were coming out. Let's see what his status is. Lions organization reportedly confident Jameson Williams will be the number. Yeah, With or without, okay, that's not a problem. What I need to do actually is I need to mute that just in case. Okay, Amon-Ra St. Brown 6 hours ago. Amon-Ra, I don't know if one win is the answer, blah, 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 blah. Is he playing this week? I don't see an actual official report as to his practice participation today, because that is the vital decision making as to whether I pick up Tesla or not. Status still up in the air to play Thursday. Look, I think he's a tough son of a gun. If you guys remember last year, I think he played with some ridiculous injury. I don't know what it was. It was something absolutely bonkers. I'm sure many of you remember. There was some sort, like maybe like he tore an abdomen muscle or something like that. And he played the whole year. Anyway, if in fact we were in a situation in which we had a guarantee that Amon-Ra was not going to play, which is not a guarantee right now, I would play Tesla. Otherwise, I'd play Vele. And then last available option will be Wicks. But Tesla, number 1, Vele 2, Wicks 3. In the event in which Amon-Ra is active, I don't want to play Tesla at that point, which makes it difficult. Makes it more of a risk and kind of gamble for you in this circumstance, considering I don't have any official word as to the practice participation of Amon-Ra today. I'm sure I can maybe find, let's see here, Amon-Ra practice today. Let's see here. Is the internet going to tell me? No. So until further notice, that's the current concern. Thank you. Jaw says, I saw that Diggs played less than 30% of offensive snaps. Yeah, but when you're up 30-7 at halftime, like, are we surprised? That's the thing, guys. You have to take into account the overall expectation of what you would see from your starters in the second half when you're already up 30-7. So in that circumstance, when you look at the upcoming schedule ahead, with where they're at, trying to secure the number 1 seed in the AFC, and they have matchups against Buffalo and Baltimore in the first 2 weeks of the fantasy football playoffs, I'd like to assume that that number jumps up to 70% and he gets back to his normal production. Daniel Barnes sends in a question, says, Gadsden, no good anymore? I mean, as of right now, probably want to avoid playing him because I don't like the matchup specifically against the Eagles. Outside of that, to be determined. Because yes, as of right now, not enough opportunity in his direction to make him a sustainable top 10 tight end option. Jack Barrick sends in a question. Thank you very much, Jack. Says, do I trade Lamar, Benson, Abuka, Ferguson for Allen, Olave, and Kincaid? I'm 9-4 and wouldn't start Benson ever. So you are technically, okay, so you're you're upgrading at quarterback and maybe even arguably upgrading at wide receiver, and you may be taking a little bit of a downgrade at tight end, but I'm sure that there are potential waiver wire options out there. Honestly, looking at the availables of what you're getting in return and what you have to give, if Kincaid plays this week and stays healthy for the remainder of the season, I don't mind the trade. Because genuinely, I think Allen is just an always automatic start, no-brainer every week. And based on what Abuka's done in the eventual return of Mike Evans, Olave is the better option. And then Kincaid, genuinely, as long as he's healthy, taking on Cincy this week, I mean, then New England the next week, then Baltimore the next week after that, I feel like he'd be highly implicated for a lot of utilization in those games. So I'm down with the trade. Thank you. Moving on to Eugenio Flores. Eugenio. Got it. Thank you. Neil or Rodriguez off waivers, full PPR. As of right now, I'd rather have Rodriguez because I do anticipate eventually for the likes of Alvin Kamara to return. So that is the primary indication as to why I would go with Rodriguez over Neil. If we're talking about just singularly this week, I could make the argument in which Neil is the more valuable asset. But in terms of long-term rest of season purposes, Rodriguez would be the answer. Thank you. The White sends in a question, says full PPR. Starting Dak, Jacobs, Genty, Pickens, Brian Robinson, no, BRJ? Who the heck is BRJ? You mean BTJ maybe? I don't know who BRJ is because that would be Brian Robinson Jr. That's the only thing I would pop to my head. Let me see if you ended up correcting that. It says, oops, I also have Javonte Williams. Okay. Fannin, my bench is Harvey, Aaron Jones, Tracy, Emmanuel Wilson, Pearsall, Diggs, Waller, Dart. Drop 2 for 80, Mitchell, and Evans. Okay, so Javonte Williams, you don't even have to mention because we know we're not dropping him. Ultimately, your auto drops in this circumstance probably end up being Pearsall, and probably end up being. I want to kind of take the risk here. Okay, so I'm thinking it's like Emmanuel Wilson and Pearsall who get the drop, but it's a little bit sketchy because I just don't know if I can afford to drop Emmanuel Wilson if Jacobs gets injured again. My season's pretty much torched in that case. I don't want to drop Waller because I think he's a better option than Fannin rest season. Yeah, if it's my team, genuinely, with the RB depth at which you have right now, Emmanuel Wilson and Pierce, I'll get the axe. I think Jacobs will be fine rest of the season. I know it's a high risk, high reward kind of situation, but that's the way I go about it. Yeah. Now, in the event in which once you pick up Evans, you could put him in your IR spot, then you go back and pick up Emmanuel Wilson afterward. Thank you. AJ, what's up? Says questions in the chat, bro. Thank you very much, AJ. Says, week 16, are we okay playing Denver's defense against Jacksonville? I think it's fine. I don't think that's an issue. Do I think it's the greatest overall play within the given week? No, but I think Denver's defense, again, can very easily light up anybody. And considering how much of a turnover machine at times Trevor Lawrence has been in his career, I think it's a relatively solid potential play there. Week 17, Bucks, Pittsburgh, or Saints defense in the championship Sunday. Again, I would like to assume that the Saints can absolutely handle the Tennessee Titans offense. I like Pittsburgh against Miami in that week as well. I like the Buccaneers versus, I believe the Bucks play against, what is it? Is it Carolina in that given week? Let me just confirm. They play against Miami. Excuse me. No, never mind. Who does Pittsburgh play then in week 17? I thought they played against Miami. They play against Miami week 15. God, they play against Cleveland. Oh, at that point, I'd rather play Pittsburgh's defense against Cleveland week 16. No, we're talking about week 17. What am I talking about, bro? Week 16. No. You mentioned week 17. I'm tripping right now. Holy moly. Okay. Week 17. We talked about week 16 for Denver. Week 17, I'm playing Pittsburgh. Yes, I'll play Pittsburgh there. Thank you. It says week 16, Denver defense. Okay, we took care of that. Drop them and grab Bills versus Cleveland. I mean, genuinely, I think that the Bills versus Cleveland is a better matchup. And then Saints versus Titans or Bucks. Yeah, no, as of right now, I'll take Pittsburgh versus Cleveland as well. I pretty much want to just take advantage of Shedeur at this point because he'll make some mistakes in those circumstances. Thank you. All right, moving on to a question from Jordan Henry. It says, Andrew, who's your NFL team? Hope you're doing good. I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. As for who's my NFL team, I would like to... Okay, look, first and foremost, I would say that my allegiance resides with my fantasy teams more than my allegiance to an actual team because of how much I root for players. I really don't have like I have to root for a singular team. I love every team because honestly, it's just fun to watch every team play. But I'm an LA Rams guy. Thank you very much. Secondary to that is the Chargers. Roy Shaver sends in a question, says, see chat, thanks for all the education. Thank you, Roy. Appreciate it. All right, Roy says, in a must-win week, one quarterback is May, picked up Herbert weeks ago to cover this week. Wide receiver one is Amon-Ra. Use my first waiver wire on Daniel Jones or Isaac Tesla in a half PPR 6-point per passing touchdown. Okay. Am I utilizing I would assume that Herbert's going to play. My only question then becomes a matter of if, in fact, you don't get Daniel Jones, you think there's someone else in your league that'll pick him up? If you do believe so, what is the next best available option? Could you go pick up Jacoby Brissett? Because if you can, I'd rather play him than Daniel Jones in this case. So as of now, I'd probably prioritize Tesla, to be honest. Thank you. All right, moving on. Austin, who says, trade Allen and Ladd for Burrow and Bowers. In a tight end premium league, I'd be very curious to know what your tight end and wide receiver situation looks like currently, because I think Allen is the better quarterback than Burrow rest season. I think everybody would agree to that. So then it just becomes purely a matter of what do we have at wide receiver to where we can afford to give away Bowers, and what is at current tight end that we are upgrading so significantly to where we're taking such a downgraded quarterback. If you can go ahead and type in the chat more context as to what your roster looks like as it stands, that'll give me a little bit of a better understanding as to whether or not I would suggest to make this move. Thank you. RX Powell says, hey Andrew, I've got a lot of questions. Rosters in the chat. Should I flex Smitty or C-Rod? Okay, that's a couple. I think it depends on format. So you have to tell me what your scoring format is first and foremost. Pick up McPherson and drop Boswell. Yes, I'd pick up McPherson and drop Boswell. Mike Titan is weak with Schultz. Your tight end is weak with Schultz. It depends on what your scoring format is, because if you're in a full PPR, there's no way. Okay, half PPR. I don't even think Schultz is weak in a half PPR in this case. Yeah, he's not the greatest overall play, but there's only so much you can vertically move from there. He's put up 9, 8.1, 14.8, 10.7, 14.3. In the last 7 games here, he's been 8+ points in 5 of the last 7. I don't really mind that in this circumstance, unless there's significantly better options out there. Let me look at this team. So it's in a half PPR 12-man double flex league. Okay. So what do we have in terms of this question? So are we playing Smitty or C-Rod? What do we have in a double flex format? We have Chase Brown. Okay, so Josh Allen's the auto start. Chase Brown auto start. Jameer, we have Brees auto start. Jamar Chase auto start. CeeDee Lamb auto start. Then you have Judkins, who has to play at the flex, and then you have Smitty or C-Rod. Shaheed, Jaden Higgins, Devin Neal. Yeah, look, between those two available options, personally, if Jaden Daniels ends up starting, I'm rolling with C-Rod. Otherwise, I'll just take Smitty in that case. It says, our commissioner said that we could vote to open trading again. If I were to try to trade for a tight end, who should I trade away? Appreciate it. Also, I'm worried about Smitty week 14. I'm thinking C-Rod instead. For context, this is a must-win week. Yeah, listen, I'm not 100% excited about the potential of Smitty either this week, but I do think that C-Rod, with the potential of Jaden Daniels being there, just makes it that much more of an exciting auto start in that circumstance. Otherwise, C-Rod, in the absence of a touchdown, pretty much kills your week, which is the risk. As of right now, if you were to theoretically trade for a tight end, you would try to maybe go after, I mean, at this point, are we technically trading for a tight end in this case? I don't know if I want to trade for one with the upcoming schedule looking like it is for Schultz. Because if you're going to trade for a tight end, you'd probably have to find a team that's RB needy and send them Devin Neal and Schultz in exchange for one singular tight end, which you could probably do. And maybe you can go after Jake Ferguson and accomplish that, or maybe there's somebody else out there that someone in your league is completely off of at the moment. But ultimately, in terms of going forward for the fantasy playoffs, I feel like unless you're going to buy low on a Fergie or potentially somehow get Brenton Strange off somebody's hands, or, I mean, unless something like that is going to happen, because you're not going to get Kelsey, you're not going to be able to get Bowers or McBride or Tyler Warren. Jawan Johnson's probably going to be out of potential touch. Unless something like that is going to open up, I'd probably just keep Schultz in that circumstance. So yeah, it's just depending on whether you can get like a Fergie and or Brenton Strange. And by making that trade of what you're sending Schultz and Devin Neal in order to accomplish it. Thank you. Alrighty, let me go back up here real quick because I did ask for more context from Austin in this circumstance. Austin didn't have any more context as of yet, so we'll wait for that. We move on to Ibrahim. What's up, Ibrahim? How's it going? It says Goff or Lamar this week. It depends on Amon-Ra. If Amon-Ra is inactive, I'm playing Lamar. Otherwise, I'll probably just go Goff if Amon-Ra's in. Do you like Wanda Robinson week 15 versus the Commanders in a half PPR? Yes, I do. The Commanders allow the most receiving yards to opposing slot wide receivers this season, so it should be an auto start there in that circumstance. Eugeno had a follow-up, says Pierce, Wilson, Sutton, or Strange, half PPR. If Wilson is Michael Wilson and Marvin Harrison misses this week, he gets the start. Otherwise, I think your next best available play is probably playing Cortland Sutton there. And then it would be Pierce second, then Strange third, and then Wilson fourth. But only Wilson gets the auto start in the event in which Marvin Harrison misses this week, which is a possibility considering he left Sunday's game with a heel injury. Sean K, 3145 says, dropping Dicker for McPherson or hold? I personally don't mind the swap. I actually prefer it personally. But if you wanted to hold, I don't have an issue with it at all. Because again, I think Dicker has been a great kicker all season long, as he's obviously produced at an incredibly high rate, to which, I mean, like as of this current moment, if we pull it up right now, oh, I'm looking at the wrong league. No wonder. I was like, what the heck's going on there? Cameron Dicker's been the number 2 kicker in fantasy thus far this season. As of late, 8+ fantasy points for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. Again, I don't mind keeping him. If you don't want to take the risk of it, just keep what you have. He plays indoors. But personally, I don't mind. I would actually make the swap. Jordan sends it a question. Jordan McQueen, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Says currently number 2 seed. Go all out and secure a bye I'm heavy underdog with this week's buys and stuck with starting 2 of Jaden Higgins, Keenan Allen, Devon Vele, AD Mitchell, Isaac Tesla. Half people. Okay, so let's see here. Houston's defense or go with Miami. Don't want to roster both and forced to drop a player. Okay, hold up. Got a lot to deal with here. So you're saying, should we go and try to secure the buy? Absolutely. Now, does that mean that you have to rip your team apart in order to accomplish it? If it does, I mean, look, at this point, I think Keenan Allen is droppable, genuinely. I think of those available options, by far and away, Keenan Allen is the least valuable of this group going forward. So if I'm starting 2 of these players, if Amon-Ra is out, I play Tesla. And then alongside of him, I'm probably in a position to where against Kansas City, I don't like Higgins. Vele against Miami is decent. Actually, sorry, they played Miami last week, excuse me. They play against Tampa this week, which is actually not bad. And then we have AD Mitchell against Miami. That's what it was. I'd probably go AD Mitchell, and I'd probably play Tesla in that circumstance. Otherwise, it's Vele and AD Mitchell. And then as for, do I drop Houston's defense this week against Kansas City in order to pick up Miami? You could. I think that's a pretty decent overall play. But over the course of this season, Houston's been one of those defenses where you just auto start every week. But I do believe Miami's an incredible play this week. So if you were to have to drop somebody in order to accomplish that, Keenan Allen's that sacrificial lamb in this circumstance. And then it says Sharps or Benson. In the event in which Benson is active, I would have to see how many full participations of practice he gets. Otherwise, I'm for sure just going to play Charbonnet. In the event in which they have Benson at a full participation Wednesday through Friday, I'd play Benson. McPherson, Dicker, Loop rest season. Yeah, I'll take McPherson there. Otherwise, it's Dicker second and then Loop third. Thank you. Appreciate it. Tyler sends in a question, says, what's up, brother? London and St. Brown out pain. Yeah, listen, that's a little bit of a rough situation. No questions to be added, but yes, definite pain for sure, Tyler. Drewski, what's up? Says, good evening, man. Questions in the chat. Thank you, Drewski. Says, in a full PPR, I need 1 in the flex this week. Trying to lock up my first round buy with Worthy, Watson, Pierce, Tesla, Bam Knight, or Chris Rodriguez. Okay, this question is still going to be contingent on whether or not we have someone like Trey Benson active. If Trey Benson does not play, Bam Knight's your starter. Otherwise, you probably end up playing Alec Pierce here, but you could end up playing Tesla on Thursday in the event in which Amon-Ra is out. At this point, again, very much so contingent on the injury status of a couple players. As of right now, I'm trying to play Bam Knight more than anybody. So I'd probably wait to see if Bam Knight can be the starter and Benson's out again. If he doesn't play, I'll just pivot to playing Alec Pierce against Jacksonville, which I think is a great play. That's my current representation as to how I would rank them. Bam Knight 1, Pierce 2, depending on the status of Trey Benson. Thank you. Moving on to a question from To The Max 324. To The Max, long time no see. Hope you're doing well. Says, sup, Andrew. My question is in the chat. Thanks for all your hard work and time that you provided us with the info. Happy holidays. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. Very generous of you. Whenever you get an opportunity, type it in the live chat. Thanks, man. Jerome Hill sends out a question. Says, can I get some help with the wire? Absolutely. Have a few questions in the chat. Okay, perfect. Let's see what you got here, brother. Says, drop Pearsall for McLaurin. Absolutely. 10 times out of 10 would make that move. Abso-freaking-lutely. Drop T. Johnson, as in Theo Johnson, for Bretton Strange? Yes, absolutely. Is Tracy's injury serious? No. According to Tracy's own representation, based on when he was asked earlier today by the media, he said he wasn't thinking that it was a serious injury. He'll be fine. So I'm not too worried about that. Am I dropping Tracy for Bam? Only if you're in a must-win situation this week to win to get in. Patriots on a bye, defense on the waiver wire are Titans, Commanders, Dolphins, Buccaneers. How do I prioritize? Personally, of these available options, I would like to prioritize either the Dolphins or the Buccaneers in the given week. I mean, personally, I think I would rather play. I think I'd rather have the Dolphins defense. Yeah, I think the Dolphins defense is where I'd rather go with as of this moment. So for now, I mean, I do think that they're probably both going to be in my top 5 this week. The Bucks, if they blitz Shuck enough, could be a disaster for Shuck. But I think the Dolphins are, oh, man, I don't know. Maybe it is the. This is a tough one. The thing about defense is, I'm trying to like predict script of how the game develops, because depending on who's going to be throwing late in game is going to determine who's going to get sacked the most, who's going to get those turnovers, etc., etc. I think if I'm leaning towards the safer play, it's probably the Bucs defense. but I kind of want to play the Dolphins. So I'll probably rank the Dolphins ahead. But I think if you wanted to just go safe, just go with the Buccaneers. As for, yes, pick up McLaurin, pick up Strange. Thank you. All right, let me go back up here. Let me see if there was any continued context from Austin. Okay. Austin says quarterback is Allen and Stafford. Okay. Wide receivers are Jamar, Puka, St. Brown. Running backs are JT, Rico, Chuba, Manungai. Tight ends are Kelsey and Strange. Thanks, Drew. It's a dynasty as well. We do get 40/50 yard bonus as well. 4 pass, 6 run. Okay. So in a tight end premium format in which we're talking about a dynasty league, am I trading away Josh Allen in a dynasty? Oh gosh. But I mean, I'm getting Bowers, which for the next 10 years, I'll get Bowers there. As long as, okay, so this is what my thought process is as of this moment. In the event in which this league is not a super flex where you cannot start 2 quarterbacks, because I know you mentioned Stafford and Allen. In the event in which this is a league where you just have, oh man, do I want to make this trade? I mean, your wide receivers are stacked. You can afford to make the move. Kelsey's on his way out soon enough. Maybe after this year retires. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't mind the trade. I think in a league where it is a 1 quarterback format where you can only start 1 quarterback dynasty, I'm willing to make the move. Thank you. I know it's giving up a lot. Because I want to have Josh Allen, but in terms of a tight end premium format, having Bowers, who could theoretically for the next decade here be a top 5 tight end every time out, if not be in that top 1-2 conversation going forward, especially once they settle their quarterback conversation, it's going to be a really it's going to be a pretty good snag in that circumstance. Thank you. Rogo, what's up? Says pick 1, drop Pacheco / Michael Wilson for Strange. Kittle's out. I drop Pacheco. I would like to keep Michael Wilson in case Marvin Harrison's out this week, to which then at that point, I'm able to potentially play Michael Wilson as an auto start in the absence of Marvin Harrison. Thank you. Alrighty, we have been here for nearly an hour. I want to go ahead and get into the live chat here, answer some questions. Appreciate you guys. Jeez Louise, that's not English. Appreciate you guys being patient with me. As soon as I heard it come out of my mouth, I was like, all right, what is that? Okay, we had Kamikaze in the chat, says, hey Drew, must-win scenario for me. Who should I start in the flex? Woody, Shakir, or Kincaid? It's going to be, I mean, look, I would like to try to play Kincaid there, but it's to be determined as of right now. Or pick up somebody off the waivers like Mason, Mitchell, Corum, Vele, Tesla. As of right now, I mean, again, in the event in which we do have an opportunity to pick up Tesla and play him in the absence of Amon-Ra, it's decent. I think at that point, I think it's okay to make that move. If I had to drop one of those 3 players in order to accomplish it, it's not worth it. I just play Kincaid, assuming he's available. Otherwise, I pivot to probably playing Shakir. Says also, okay, so this is a question from Anthony. He says, C-Rod, Corum, who do I pick up as a possible start if Hampton is still out? Because I have my running backs besides Jacobs on bye. And even if Hampton is back, do I start him? Okay. Also, what are we doing with Hubbard and Dowdle for the playoffs? Both full PPR. Also, if Harrison sits down, I play Worthy or pick up Vele and Aiden Mitchell. Okay, you asked like 1,000 questions here, so I'm going to try to very easily sift through that. So first and foremost, okay, in the event in which Hampton is out, you need to prioritize C-Rod because he has the most value rest season. Kyron's not going to miss time. You'll be fine. So you should prioritize C-Rod in this circumstance. Now, in regards to your next question, to the overall circumstance of Hubbard versus Dowdle, expect for Hubbard to take over the entire backfield. Genuinely. Expect that to happen. And then as for if Harrison sits, if Marvin Harrison misses this week, I'm just going to probably end up playing, I'll probably end up playing AD Mitchell in that circumstance. Thank you. All right, Kamikaze, let me get to your full question here. So you had said must-win scenario. Yeah, again, if Amon-Ra is out, I'd probably go Tesla. Otherwise, I'd lean towards Kincaid. Now, the rest of your team looks like Dart, Caleb, Ladd, Myers, JT, Hall, Strange, Woody, Prater. Bench is Tet, Shakir, Tracy, Kincaid, and Daniels. Okay. So my current thought process revolves around the following. In the event in which Jaden... oh, well, you can't figure that out now. Fuck. Okay. This is a tough one because I would probably keep Strange the rest of the season, but I want to play Kincaid this week. But Kincaid's status is still up in the air, which makes it difficult to trust. To which at this point, we won't know what his status even is by Sunday. So I would want to play Tesla on Thursday if given the opportunity to do so, but I don't know the status of Amon-Ra. This is the issue. Oh, goodness. Of course, I just messed up my camera. This is the issue. This is the conundrum of fantasy football. Without a full context of knowing what the heck is going to happen, as of this moment, with what you have on roster, I probably tell you to just keep. In the event in which Kincaid is active, he plays. Otherwise, I play Shakir. And I prioritize those two over whatever the heck is available on waivers that I currently see for you with Mason Mitchell, Corum, Vela, etc. Tesla. Thank you. All right, there was another super chat question that came in. Let me go ahead and get to that. What's up, my man? Sharangan says, who should I pick up for waivers? Context is below. Okay. Says Godwin is on the wire. C-Rod and AD Mitchell aren't on the wire. Okay. 10-team PPR redraft, double running back, double wide receiver, double flex. Quarterback is Nix, running and Purdy. Running backs are Henry, Judkins, Travion, Alvin Kamara, Harvey. Wide receivers are Amon-Ra St. Brown, Lama Conkey, Nico Collins, Rome Dunze, Kelsey and Waller are my tight ends, and my defense is Cleveland. Okay. So in the event in which you're picking up Chris Godwin, that you're mentioning is available, I mean, at this point, I'd rather have Tesla this week. In the case of which, if Amon-Ra doesn't play, I'd rather play Tesla than Godwin. So as of that moment, or as of this moment, that's probably the move at which I make. I try to go pick up Tesla. If you need to drop somebody in order to accomplish that, I'd be surprised, considering I would hope you could be able to put Alvin Kamara in your IR or Amon-Ra in your IR until further notice. If that's not possible, Waller gets the drop. Thank you. Isaac Smith, 3901, says Stevenson or Rodriguez rest of season. In a rest of season circumstance, that's a tough one because Ramondre Stevenson stealing all the work that he did yesterday does make me sick to my stomach. He doesn't provide any value this week. And looking at the upcoming schedule ahead, there is some advantageous positions there against Buffalo and the New York Jets in week 17. Am I 100% in on the idea that Stevenson's the guy? No, I'd probably rather have Rodriguez because I think there's a little bit potentially more touchdown potential. Yeah, I think the touchdown potential is there. And that's kind of what I want to bank on. That's where I'd go. Thank you. Jack sends in a question. Says Strange or Gadsden at tight end? Strange. Then flex Sutton, Christian Watson, or the other tight end? Sutton. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Flotation says, Cord, kind of worried about Amon-Ra St. Brown, like everyone. Yeah, I don't think he'll... Look, I think he's a tough son of a gun. If he does end up playing, he's going to be... it's going to be maybe a tough watch for us. I think that's my concern. I'm going to open up Discord right now on my phone. Give me a moment to check that out real quick, brother. Thank you. All right. Of course, Brandon Ingram scores 21 points, man. What, I'm just sick. Couldn't just make one more bucket for me. Okay. Let's get the cord. Let's see what you have to ask. Flotation. Says, I have about 44 fab left. Do you think it's worth to something where between 30 to 35 for Tesla? Kind of last swing. Yeah, I mean, at this point, yeah, it is. Because if you don't win this week, it's pretty much over, right? Kind of deal. So in the case of this circumstance, yeah, it's worth it. Just let it ride. Rip the whole thing. Genuinely. Like maybe leave a couple dollars just in case. Like maybe leave like one or two. But I think maybe 4, maybe just rip 40 and just go get Tesla just in case. I think that's a decent insurance policy in this circumstance. Thank you. To the Max sends in a question. Says, I posted my question a few minutes ago in the chat. Okay, sounds good, man. Thanks. So let's see what you have here. Full PPR, one flex. Roster is Burrow, Gibbs, H.N. Rice, JSN, Goddard, Watson, Aubrey, Broncos defense. Bench is Dart, Ollie Gordon, Tootin, Sutton, Kincaid, Browns defense. On the waivers, we have Chuba, needs to be picked up. Corum doesn't need to be picked up. Vele doesn't need to be. Tesla doesn't. Strange, yes. McPherson, yes. Okay. So I think in your circumstance, I'm going to prioritize picking up Chuba Hubbard because I think genuinely he could probably be flexed for you rest of season. To where I'm going to prioritize Chuba 1, Strange 2, McPherson 3. That's the order in which you should go about these players. As to who we're dropping in order to accomplish this, I think would be the following. I'm dropping probably... Okay, so I would drop Tootin in order to pick up Chuba. Then I'm going to drop Goddard in order to pick up Strange. And then I'm obviously going to drop Aubrey in order to pick up McPherson. Thank you. All right, Mr. Hockey Man says pick up and play. Christian Watson or Jacoby Myers full PPR. If Sauce Gardner's out, I'm picking up and playing Jacoby Myers. That's what I'd go with. Yeah, I'd rather have Jacoby Myers in this circumstance. Thank you. Reese 2010, what's up? It says full PPR. Do I flex ETN or Sutton? It's a good question. I would like to assume that I'd rather play ETN personally. I think this is more consistency on his end. Thank you. Andrew Mitchell 1061 says if London is out, which I'm assuming is going to be the case, but we'll have to wait and see. I need a wide receiver / tight end with Tet and Diggs on bye in a standard with bonus per 100 yards. Drop who? Kincaid and a good pickup for the spot, or who from Monday's video? Okay, so technically speaking, in the event in which you need a wide receiver to play in this circumstance, if you can just pick them up freely because you have an open available spot on roster, I would say if Bam Knight is out there, actually, no, you're talking about wide receiver tight end. Got it. So let me just rewind there. Isaac Tesla would probably be the guy, assuming Amon-Ra is out on Thursday. Otherwise, I would say Brenton Strange. No, actually, I'd rather play Kincaid. So yeah, it's Isaac Tesla. That's the only thing that I would theoretically maybe consider ahead of Kincaid, considering I don't know the status of Kincaid. If Kincaid misses, then yeah, instead of Tesla, it'd probably be Strange after that as the number 2. Thank you, Andrew Mitchell. Appreciate that. Alrighty, how long have we been here for? About an hour and 5 minutes. Okay, we're going to probably be here for another 5 to 10 minutes, tops. And then we'll call it there. I have to, of course, get to preparing for tomorrow's wide receiver rankings video for week 14. And then, of course, tomorrow we'll be back answering questions tomorrow night, probably around 6 to 7 p.m. PST for about a quick hour. That's typically how long these live streams are. Because, again, unfortunately, I was going to say unfortunately, but it takes a lot of time to put together those videos. So it is what it is. It is the reality of the situation. Daniel Barnes sends in a question, says more valuable rest season, Hubbard or Terry McLaurin? That's a really good one. I think technically speaking, if Jaden Daniels was active, I would tell you that Terry McLaurin's more valuable because there's still a potential in which Rico Dowdle continues to split a two-headed monster backfield with Hubbard, in comparison to Terry, who would have the full outreign of opportunities floated in his direction for rest of season. So for now, I'd lean toward McLaurin in that circumstance because Rico's still active and healthy. Thank you. All right. AD over Tesla. That's a matter of like rest of season. Yes, I ranked AD higher than Tesla yesterday, but the only reason in which I would prefer Tesla this week is because there is an expectation in which Amon-Ra may miss. Sorry, man. Who do I drop? Who would be the drop? Let's see here. Says also have Chase, Brown, Swift, Brees. Don't want to drop. Oh, I would have to drop Tet or Diggs in order to accomplish this. Oh, brother, you can't just move London to IR and get the free open spot. If you had to drop one of those two, technically I'm dropping Tet or McMillan. I don't trust him as much. Oh, but I mean, at this point, if you have to drop Tet or Diggs, I'm just keeping Kincaid. Oh yeah, you would have to pick up Kincaid. Yeah. So in the case of this situation, yeah, Teteroa is the sacrificial lamb in order to try to help you win this week. Pearsall droppable? I would say yes. Because again, here's the reality of the situation. Nothing that we've seen from Pearsall leads us to believe that he's an auto start in week 15 after he comes off the bye. So can you trust him to play him in the fantasy playoffs? Yes, but only if we get a solid performance in week 15 could we trust him in 16 or 17. And until then, again, he's not relatively rosterable until week 16, theoretically speaking, because no one's starting him in week 15. Even regardless of how advantageous a potential Tennessee Titans matchup could be. Thoughts on Evans? Should have been on roster 4 weeks ago. For sure, pick him up. Tesla or Mitchell off the wire. Depends on if you need rest of season value or value as of this week. PPR Godwin or Neal rest of season. I'd probably rather have Godwin in that case because I do expect Kamara to come back. They didn't put him on the injured reserve for a reason. Honestly, is Benson a hold? Yes. Assuming he gets back into the lineup, there's too much opportunity within the Arizona Cardinals backfield for us to ignore what he could potentially absorb from Bam Knight and effectively Michael Carter. So he is still a hold until we get further information regarding his health. You kind of have to just hold on to it. Sean Case is in a flex, full PPR, Hampton or Tesla. That is tough to say because I don't know if Hampton's going to play on Monday. So at that point, if we get to full PPR, Amon-Ra's out on Thursday, I play Tesla there. Says, we concerned about Tesla, only had 2 targets past week. Am I concerned about it? Yes. But am I willing to look past it? Yes. Because I think the opportunity would increase. Also, Evans and Benson are on the waivers. Or do I prioritize Tesla? Oh, no. If you had the opportunity of picking up Benson, I think that's the play. You pick up Benson and you hope that either him or Hampton end up playing. Because I think they both help you rest of season far more than what Tesla provides in just 1 week of play. Thoughts on AD Mitchell? Again, Garrett Wilson's eventually coming back, so you could probably get maybe 1 or 2 more weeks of good opportunity out of him. Are we starting Strange over Gasson this week? Absolutely. Wilson or Harrison rest of season? It depends on Harrison's health. I know he left the game with a heel injury. If in fact that heel injury is going to sustain him to potentially be out for multiple weeks, then Wilson technically is your answer via proxy of injury. Olave has been has a very good strength of schedule. Carolina only quote unquote tough matchup, but he killed them in week 10. Yeah, he's a zone killer. Olave's always been good against zone coverage, especially this season. He's one of the top options in terms of receptions versus zone. So in the case in which you're taking on Carolina, who is a predominant zone coverage team, the expectation is that Olave would continue to cook. Murphy says, "What's up, man? When can we start trusting Lamar? Debating rolling out Bo Nix over him. When can we trust it?" I mean, ultimately, it's just going to be a matter of like, can you put aside the most recent performances and just trust the talent of the player rather than the recent production? Because outside of that, let's say, for example, the fumble doesn't happen for Lamar this most recent week. When I mean by the fumble, I mean legitimately the Isaiah Likely, I'm about to step into the end zone, I do an AD Mitchell and I fumble out the back. If that doesn't happen, I don't think we're worried about Lamar. So honestly, I'm not too worried about it myself. Daniels available in my league, drop dart. If you would theoretically start Daniels this week by doing this in order to help yourself win, then sure. But I don't know if Daniels is playing, so maybe I don't make that move until I get further information regarding his status. Bam, Knight, or Jefferson. The only way I would ever play Bam there is if Trey Benson's out once again. Start Debo, C-Rod, or AD Mitchell. It depends on the status of Jaden Daniels. If Jaden Daniels is active, I play Debo. Otherwise, I'm playing C-Rod there in a half PPR. Sup, bro? Strange, Andrews, Waller, pick one. I'd rather play Strange. Jordan Love or Dak Prescott? It's got to be Dak. Goff or Lawrence? Depends on Amon-Ra. If Amon-Ra's active, I'll play Goff. Otherwise, I'll play Lawrence against Indy. Joseph Meyer says, full PPR, have to drop one Diggs, Rico, or Wan'Dale Robinson in a must-win. Pick someone up with... Okay, so in the case of this question, it depends on a couple factors. It depends on what the running back depth on roster looks like for you. Because considering you're going to be theoretically picking up a player here, I would say that of these available, is that Quentin Johnson? That's also... I mean, I don't really want to play Quentin Johnson against the Eagles per se. So in the case of this question, I would say in a full PPR, if we can get confirmation that Amon-Ra was out, I would pick up and play Tesla there. As to who I would drop, it would depend on a couple factors of what the rest of your running back depth looks like, Joseph. If it sustains without Rico, then you can make that. If it sustains without one of these wide receivers, I'd probably drop Wan'Dale Robinson in order to accomplish this. Thank you. Sorry, I meant to start 2 of them in a half PPR. Then it's Debo and C-Rod. Aaron Jones or Pittman Jr. in the flex? Pittman. Drop Sutton for McLaurin? I probably would. Tesla or AD Mitchell? Depends. Are we talking about this week or rest of season? If we're talking about this week, if Amon-Ra is out, it's Tesla. Rest of season, it's AD Mitchell. Thoughts on playing 3 Colts this week? Warren, Taylor, and Pierce? I have no problem with it. My rule of thumb has always been... Jeez, I'm out of focus. My rule of thumb has always been if I can start 3 players max, I'm good with it. That's all I need. 3 players is max for a singular team. If I get to 4, it's too many at that point. All right, my camera is doing a thing right now, so maybe you could stop doing the thing. All right, cool. So that's pretty much where we're going to call it. What does it say? I have Bucky, Benson, and Henderson. I don't really trust that enough, though, to where I'm dropping Rico. I think Wan'Dale Robinson is your sacrificial lamb. Is Amon-Ra trustable if he plays? I would like to trust that he's a tough son of a gun, and that's what I can bank on. I don't think he would play unless they were assuming he was healthy. That's kind of my thought process on the matter. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all coming through supporting the channel as you guys typically do on a daily basis via these live streams. That's where we're going to call it. Again, have a great rest of your night, guys. I'll be back tomorrow with my top 40 probably wide receiver rankings. But again, in regards to the wide receiver position, It's an interesting position to say the least. We know the volatility exists. Again, earlier today, I dropped my top 36 running back rankings. Check that out if you guys haven't not yet already. Again, I'll be back tomorrow. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to cue the double helix. Have a great rest of your night. Put in your waivers. And until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace.